Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 19 in the Cobra jet rebuild, now known as Slither. This is also part 2 of the Detroit Speed mini tub install. Now let me give you some perspective on this. In the first video, I went through the process of modifying the frame rail, test fitting the wheelhouse, and overall just kind of how to do it in more detail than you see on Detroit Speed's videos and stuff like that. Now this one, I have a little bit more to deal with. The reason is I am building this car or rebuilding this car with pieces. And part of that is the potential of widening the quarter panel. So if you already had a car that was built and you wanted to do some modifications like put in the wheelhouse, you just did it. You cut it out, put it in, you're done. But then if you wanted to do something where you modify the wheelhouse, the outer wheelhouse, and you want to extend something, then you got to cut something away from there. Well, for me, I don't have anything there. So I have to kind of rethink how I want to make this process. Let me show you where I'm at right now and kind of the idea that I have in mind for the potential of widening the quarter panel. So where we left off, I had this new Detroit Speed mini tub clamped up in place. It is loose at this point because I need to modify this back edge so that I can clear this inner flange for the pinch weld of the drop-off panel and the outer wheelhouse. Along with that, what I need to do is add in some holes up here so that I can actually weld the outer wheelhouse to the inner structure. Before I do that, I need to also prepare down here and make some holes in the rocker panel, and behind this panel I have already marked some holes because when this is welded in, it will also be welded to the inner rocker and the wheelhouse at the same time. I also need to add some holes right there. I just realized that is an overlap on that flange. Along with that, I need to prepare this back flange for some welds to hold the outer wheelhouse to the drop-off panel. But before I do all of that, I want to do some more prep work inside the rocker panel. Right now I still have access to the inside, and you probably saw in a previous video where I rebuilt this rocker panel and I replaced the outer rocker panel on the other side. And when I did that, I applied basically this rust encapsulator from Eastwood, and I coated that all inside and prepped it, prior to welding it on. But what I want to do, and I've done this before on the Jade project, is I want to basically shoot some of that rust encapsulator up into the inside of the rocker panel. Because the pinch weld, there are places where there's bare metal or there's gaps just because of the way it works. When you clamp it together, you still have a space in there. So what I will do is take a syringe like this. Now this is just a generic syringe. I'm sure you can pick these up probably at, I don't know, Tractor Supply or something like that. It's maybe something you could put a medicine in and give it to an animal or whatever. But this has just an open end on it. There's no needle or anything. You could attach this to a hose. There's a variety of things you can do with this. But as I did before, I'm going to take this and shoot the rust encapsulator as far as I can up inside. And then I also have an extended air hose with a big long rod on it, and I will blow that material as far into there as I can. So the goal is obviously to protect the inside of that, and this is one way that you can do it. You can also use the internal frame coater that I've demonstrated on the Brooklyn Pony series, but I have this, so I'm going to make use of it. Another thing that I want to do, this is the header panel for the rear window opening. As you can see, it has some rust on it. I'm going to clean that up some and then coat it with the rust encapsulator before getting it ready to weld in. So there's a whole bunch of things that need to take place, in my opinion, before I actually weld in that mini tub. Once I get to that point, I may do some modifications. I know that in the video they clamped this flange down and they welded it to the frame rail. I may or may not do that. I haven't decided yet. I kind of like the idea of putting spot welds here along this inside edge because they actually have this bent to where it has a slight kick out. And when you compress that, it kind of changes the shape of things. You can also see this line right there. That's where I need to trim off or make some modifications so that I can have that sit in there properly. When all that is in place, I will weld segments. I don't think I'll weld the whole perimeter. I'll probably weld maybe 1 or 2 inch and then skip and weld 1 or 2 inch and then skip and weld so that it is welded to the inside of the outer wheelhouse. So there are several steps involved with this. I'm going to try to make this a good video for this process, but just keep in mind that your project may not get this same approach. Okay. Okay, put this down here. As you can see, I have the window or the door open because this is pretty strong fume. So I'm going to draw some up into that syringe and basically launch it as far as I can. Yep, it's already starting to drip out. So you can see that what I was saying is true. Coming out of the gaps there. Do a little bit more. Okay. Yep. Went a good way. I could see it splattered all the way up into the front section. One more shot. Now that I have that coated, I set the wheelhouse back in place. Wanted to verify some of my drill areas and my holes. So I drew a line on this front edge here. And of course I already know I'm going to be adding holes here. And I took a closer look at these. I had kind of double holes there, but I realized it's really close to the edge of the inner rocker. So I'm just going to go with these larger holes, or these single holes I should say, and make those the strong point. Back here, what I want to do is actually punch in. Let me take this off. I want to put the holes take that out. I want to put the holes in this panel because if I weld them from the inside of the wheelhouse, it's kind of hard to blend those down, whereas I come through the other side, that'll be a lot easier. So what I did is I marked on the wheelhouse where those holes were, and I also marked inside here. So what I'm going to do is transfer these over so that they're on the front. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do much up here. I may just put a small weld up at that point. As I already showed, the wheelhouse kind of sticks out a little further than this piece, but that's just the way it's made. So we need to make some holes. I've used this before. I really like this tool. I bought it off of Amazon a while ago, back when I was working on the Camaro project. And this thing does a wonderful job. I like it because it has this deep throat here, and you can set in, kind of gauge your depth. So if I set this against that edge, now this isn't strong enough to punch holes in the rocker panel. I don't think I want to try that and put too much pressure on it. Now here, what I can do with the wheelhouse, because of that depth, I can change it basically as deep as I want it to be. And I can eyeball it. So that'll take care of those. The other ones I will just drill, because they're too deep in the in this channel. So I've drawn my line here, and you can even see the pattern, kind of wear pattern of this going in and out. So I'm just going to put a few holes here. And flatten this out a little bit. Now, of course, before I actually weld anything, I will set the quarterback on and verify this is exactly where it needs to be, along with this inner structure. Make sure all that's right. Another test fit. So if you remember, in the previous video, I talked about this right here. And if you're looking at the plane of this flange, which mates with that upper flange on the inner structure, there's no way you can have this joggle right here. I demonstrated that and I talked about it, and this is all flat. You might be able to see the Donicorn panel has a very subtle transition there, but this one, which is the NPD panel, it has a much bigger one. So I need to remedy that. Now, I've also will tell you that I've talked to Rick Schmidt about this, and I pointed this out, and he's going to have his Ford product line manager look at this and see if this needs to be retooled to correct that problem. So as it is, what I plan to do is cut this, and also I want to bring this flange up so it's on plane with this one. So let me show you. That's better. To adjust that a little bit. There we go. That's better. You know, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Test fit, test fit, test fit. And what you will find is you can put the same part on probably 10 times, and it's going to fit different 7 of those times. It happens way too often with these panels. And you think, is there something I did wrong? Is there just something, you know, what has changed? And many times, nothing has changed. It's just something about how these things interact that one time they're almost perfect, and another time they want to bounce off something and not quite line up. But right now, I can see I've got to make some adjustments. This panel right here wants to be a little bit off. See if I can push that forward. That's a little better. And I've done this before, and this fit really, really nice. And I know it will fit nice again, just things have to be pushed around a little bit to make it happen. There we go. That's better. And sometimes these panels are different lengths. Like I've seen these drop-off panels that were an inch longer. I can't say these are any different from one side or the other, but I have seen that happen. So just keep that in mind when you're fitting these things. That's right where it needs to be. You can probably see it's virtually no gap. Outer wheelhouse is where it needs to be. Might be able to adjust this just a little bit further back. That's better. So at this point, what I want to do is weld in that outer wheelhouse. And of course I can't access it with the quarter on it. I could weld this bottom flange inside. Down here, I could weld these, and I could weld that forward area as well, which is probably where I'll start. Get that taken care of, and then weld the mating flange up here. All right, so let me get started welding that together, and then we'll do another mock-up with the inner mini tub. I think things are going very well. As you've seen, I've welded together that forward mating surface there. I welded that back section, and I welded this upper section. Now this really doesn't need to be ground down. There's no value in that. You know, if you get in there to look at that and you can see that, you've really done something. So one thing I noticed as I was doing this, and you can probably hear Roger mowing his yard out there, I was looking at this and thinking, you know what, there's something missing here. So I went out and grabbed this piece, and as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is rusted to pieces here. This is the piece I need, but it is in such bad shape. Am I gonna have to fabricate that or what? Well, I looked a little bit harder, and I remembered that there's a bundle of pieces and parts that come on the Dynacorn floor pan. Actually, not the floor pan, the side. So with this side came that piece, and it also has this corner piece which goes up in the corner of the quarter window, and then two new door hinge plates. And there's this other bracket. I'll have to figure out where that goes, which can't be that hard. But thankfully, Dynacorn has done their homework. Let me show you something. Whenever I am looking at this, and this is the driver's side as you look at it, you can see the hump right here, and it gets this high spot. That's the same thing right there. And I have both of these kits, and I was thinking, well, they surely can't be any different. And I did keep them isolated. Like, I know this goes on the driver's side. And Dynacorn has done a great job with these parts. You know, you look at this and you think, well, surely it's a universal left and right, but it's not. You see the size of that opening there and the size of that opening there? They're different. When you look at the original piece, there it is. It has the big opening in the back and the small opening in the front. So kudos to Dynacorn for making that piece the way it's supposed to be made. Now all I have to do is get it in there. I don't think that's going to be that hard, but I'm going to punch some holes down here for some spot welds on these flanges, and then I'll put some holes in here so that I can weld it in place. I have all of this welded in. I did grind down some of those welds just because I can't stop myself. And then I sprayed Rust-Oleum primer on all of this area. I also sprayed it into this gap right here to get it inside of that weld. And down here I sprayed it into this gap, and of course where I had welded it previously. At this point I have the new mini tub almost in perfect position. I have been adjusting it, and you'll see that I can't go any further than that frame rail. Back here there's a little bit of a pocket, which is pretty minor, but I need to just trim this edge slightly because it's trying to push up on the panel. So I need to clean that up a little bit. Up front, similar situation. Some of this weld that I put on needs to be ground down just a little, and right here around this bulged area, and maybe just a little bit right there. So just trying to get it to fit as close as I can. On the inside, what I ended up doing, I talked about this, where this was interfering with it fitting up in place. So I basically just trimmed off that corner, and now it fits up in really nice. Really, really nice. I've been looking at this part. I thought about doing spot welds here, and I still may do that on this section, but when you go forward, there's nothing. You can get your fingers in there because you can't, there's nothing there to weld to, the original frame rail. So basically that's just going to be where it is, but it'll be fully welded on the inside perimeter. So that's not that big of a deal. I don't even know if it's that big of a concern to weld this edge, but I'll probably either weld the edge or put in spot welds and just make sure it's solid. But either way, it's going to get fully welded on the outside, and then of course all this is going to get welded. I don't know if I'll do the whole thing or just do it in, like I said earlier, 2-inch segments or something. There's nothing really gained by doing the whole thing, but seam sealer takes care of a lot of those kind of things. So at this point, I'm going to do a little more trimming and another test fit. I wanted to do a quick mock-up. Now this is the biggest tire that I have laying around, and I believe it's a 295 50R15, and I did measure this. This is 26 inches basically across, and the tread width or the tire width is right about 12 inches. And with that, there's room up above, if I can get in there, probably a good 2.5 inches or so between the tire and the mini tub, and then it's still inside, just inside the flange for the quarter panel and the wheelhouse. So that's a pretty big tire. Now I know that we are in discussion with putting even bigger tires on here, and there's a lot involved with that, the suspension, the differential, all that sort of thing. But I think that looks pretty cool. I mean, that's a really big tire to be underneath that Mustang. Now, what I want to do, I have not welded in the mini tub yet, and I'm going to set the quarter panel back on. I may even set the roof in place. I want everything to be buttoned down so that there's no movement. At this point, with the mini tub being the only thing left to anchor this side, you can still move this. I don't know if you can see it very well, but you can hear it. There you go, up there. So this is a critical point. I'm going to get all that all that in place. And of course, I will be doing a full perimeter weld around here on the inside. I may have mentioned earlier, I'll probably weld 1 or 2 inch spans all the way around, and of course weld it to the frame rail. I have put dots or marks where I want to drill holes to attach it there. And then of course I still need to put on the what would be left of the flange for the inner wheelhouse. So it's looking good. Well, I think I'm at a good stop point for this video. So as you saw, I welded the inside spot welds that I had pre-punched, and I also tacked in the edge of the Detroit Speed wheelhouse to the outer wheelhouse. I also did a perimeter weld along the edge here, and some of these welds may look a little different. This area here, there was a bit of a concave shape, so I may go over that one more time. I'm not sure. It did weld nice. And back here I was experimenting, just trying to lay beads on top of each other just to see what it would look like. And I will probably blend this down some, but overall it's really looking good. Now the next thing I need to do, and I'm not going to make the video on this part, is weld in this flange for the original style inner wheelhouse. So I had to do a little trimming to get it to fit, simply because of the way this design is. This one, when they were put in, they are below the floor pan, and then this section here sticks on the outside of the drop-off pan. And you can't do that now. This is tight. The outer is tight up against this, so you kind of got to massage it a little to make it work. However, it's going to work just fine. Once I get all this clamped in place, I can do another weld on this edge all the way around, and also on this front section. And there is more weld there, and it's looking really, really good. As I said, I'm going to weld. I don't know. I may do a whole perimeter weld on this. I don't know that I need to. My mind was telling me inch gap, inch gap. It really won't make much difference. It's going to be a little more challenging to weld all that, but I may just go ahead and do it. So that'll be it for this video. I hope you found some information that may help you with one of your projects that you may be working on. If you're considering putting in Detroit Speed or Mustang Staffir mini tubs, there's some choices to be made there. I do like the way this is made. It kind of mimics the original design of the inner wheelhouse, so I like that. And overall, I think it's going to be really good. There will be another part to this as I move forward with the project. There will be the brackets, the seat assembly, all that stuff still has to be incorporated into the car, so that'll be coming at a later date. As it is, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week. Apparently I've been called to jury duty, and you know how that is. You could be there for the whole week, you could be there for one day, so I don't know where that's going to work with my schedule. So you may be seeing, this is an idea that I've had now for a while, you may be seeing a reboot or a reposting of some of my older videos with some editing. And I think that's going to be beneficial for everybody. They can see what I've done in the past, and it may stir up some interest in some of the projects that I have worked on. So you may want to look forward to that, and we'll see how that goes. But as it is, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my patrons who are supporting me in doing these projects and helping me continue to make videos. If you would, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, hit that bell notification. But until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.